Recorded Books presents an unabridged recording of Dissolution by C.J. Sansom, narrated by Stephen Crossley and directed by Erica Jensen.
Chapter 1. I was down in Surrey on business for Lord Cromwell's office when the summons came. The lands of a dissolved monastery had been awarded to a member of Parliament whose support he needed, and the title deeds to some woodlands had disappeared. Tracing them had not proved difficult, and afterwards I had accepted the MP's invitation to stay a few days with his family. I had been enjoying the brief rest, watching the last of the leaves fall before returning to London and my practice. Sir Stephen had a fine new brick house of pleasing proportions, and I had offered to draw it for him. But I had only made a couple of preliminary sketches when the rider arrived. The young man had ridden through the night from Whitehall and arrived at dawn. I recognized him as one of Lord Cromwell's private messengers, and broke the Chief Minister's seal on the letter with foreboding. It was from Secretary Grey, and said Lord Cromwell required to see me immediately at Westminster. Once the prospect of meeting my patron and talking with him, seeing him at the seat of power he now occupied, would have thrilled me. But this last year I had started to become weary of politics and the law, men's trickery, and the endless tangle of their ways. And it distressed me that Lord Cromwell's name, even more than that of the King, now evoked fear everywhere. It was said in London that the beggar gangs would melt away at the very word of his approach. This was not the world we young reformers had sought to create when we sat talking at those endless dinners in each other's houses. We had once believed with Erasmus that faith and charity would be enough to settle religious differences between men. But by that early winter of 1537 it had come to rebellion, an ever-increasing number of executions, and greedy scrabblings for the lands of the monks. There had been little rain that autumn, and the roads were still good, so that although my disability means I cannot ride fast, it was only mid-afternoon when I reached Southwark. My good old horse, Chancery, was unsettled by the noise and smells after a month in the country, and so was I. As I approached London Bridge, I averted my eyes from the arch, where the heads of those executed for treason stood on their long poles, the gulls circling and pecking. I have ever been of a fastidious disposition, and do not enjoy even the bear-baiting. The great bridge was thronged with people as usual. Many of the merchant classes were in mourning black for Queen Jane, who had died of child-bed fever 2 weeks before. Tradesfolk cried their wares from the shops on the ground floors of the buildings, built so closely upon it they looked as though they might topple into the river at any moment. On the upper stories, women were hauling in their washing, for clouds were now darkening the sky from the west. Gossiping and calling to each other, they put me in mind, in my melancholy humour, of crows cawing in a great tree. I sighed, reminding myself I had duties to perform. It was largely due to Lord Cromwell's patronage that at 35 I had a thriving legal practice and a fine new house, and work for him was work for reform, worthy in the eyes of God. So then I still believed. And this must be important, for normally work from him came through Grey. I had not seen the Chief Secretary and Vicar General, as he now was, for 2 years. I shook the reins and steered Chancery through the throng of travellers and traders, cut-pursers and would-be courtiers into the great stew of London. As I passed down Ludgate Hill, I noticed a stall brimming with apples and pears, and, feeling hungry, dismounted to buy some. As I stood feeding an apple to Chancery, I noticed down a side street a crowd of perhaps 30 standing outside a tavern, murmuring excitedly. I wondered whether this was another apprentice moonstruck from a half-understood reading of the new translation of the Bible and turned prophet. If so, he had better beware the constable. There were 1 or 2 better-dressed people on the fringe of the crowd, and I recognized William Pepper, a Court of Augmentations lawyer, standing with a young man wearing a gaudy slashed doublet. Curious, I led Chancery down the cobbles towards them, avoiding the piss-filled sewer channel. Pepper turned as I reached him.
"Why, Shardlake, I Sample complete. Ready to continue?